Welcome back to Wooddragon Alchemy Radio. I'm Jake, your host. This is episode 5. Let's dive into it today. So, I want to start by this simple statement. There's something interesting about the word ritual, right? You know, for some people, it sounds ancient, perhaps even religious, maybe even unnecessary in modern day life. But before we step into today's episode fully, I want to return back to the bridge that we crossed together in episode 4. In episode 4, we explored the nervous system, not just as biology, but as a living doorway between the physical and the spiritual experience of being human. We talked about regulation as remembrance, the body returning to safety, presence, and connection. Right? We saw how the nervous system translates literally everything in our lives. Okay? From thought into sensation, environment into emotion, and experience into real meaning. Right? How survival patterns can then live quietly beneath our awareness in our subconscious. Right? Silently shaping how we breathe, how we move, how we relate, and even how we heal. And we remembered something simple, but profoundly powerful. When the nervous system softens, the world softens with it, right? When the body feels safe, the heart naturally opens. No force is required. See, that understanding brings us exactly where we need to be today. Because once the bridge is already stable, guys, we can begin to actually walk it with intention. Okay? We can actually create rhythms that support our body and anchor our mind and nourish our spirit. Okay? Those rhythms, those intentional anchors, that's what we call rituals. Okay? That's it. It's not anything else. Okay? People like to overcomplicate everything. Let's not. So, the way I see it, the more I've lived, and the more I've studied the nervous system, psychology, spirituality, the more I've come to believe something very simple. Rituals are not outdated. In fact, I would say that they're very essential. Because rituals can give us structure in chaos, right? Especially with like what's going on right now in the world, politically, geopolitically. I mean, it's just, remember, what you consume consumes you, okay? So when you have structure, that can give you rhythm to heal, okay? And it can give meaning to ordinary moments that make up our daily lives, right? So today, we're going to talk about daily alchemy, the small practices that transform who we are over time. So I want to touch base on my ritual evolution, kind of where it started and where it went and where I'm at, so that you guys have something to like cross compare if you want to. So I'll start by saying, if you asked me what my daily rituals were and what has grounded me and transformed me, well, I'd say it started simple, super simple, right? Meditation. At first, it was just something that I experimented with. right? The gateway tapes. When I was interested in neuroscience, I wanted to see what would happen. Then it really became something I looked forward to daily. Eventually, it even became something I needed, right? But don't be fooled. It wasn't, the need never came from a dependency-based thing, right? But for me, it felt like alignment. It felt like it's what I needed to do. Right, so and then next came journaling. I personally started with doing 2 sessions a day, standard AM, PM, set the intentions and then reflect on it, tie it all back together, right? Now, I journal when I feel called to, which right now in my life is usually once per day, right? You'll find the right number for you, whether that's 5 times a day, none at all, or somewhere in between, right? For me, it's less rigidity and it's more intuitive. And for me, that feels more alive. For me, in my experiences. You have your own, you'll figure it out on your own, just like I did. So, another thing that I've recently added that's also super simple, right, was just a morning breath ritual as well. Something that I picked up from another reflector actually, was RPM, rise, P, meditate. Mine's a little bit different since I work at 5 o'clock in the morning. I usually do this at work and it helps me set the tone for my work. But all I do is I just take a moment to do 3 to 5 deep belly breaths. That's it. Well, I close my eyes as well. Helps me center my energy. Helps me focus more. Super duper low effort, right? I'm very about what is going to provide me the biggest bang for my buck and not going to cost me a lot of energy to do it. Okay? In the words of my father, work smarter, not harder. In the words of me, work smarter so you can work harder, if that's so what you wish. But to each his own. Now, I work smarter so I can play harder. But as a reflector in human design, this really helps me feel my energy for the day, okay? Instead of trying to force a structure. That, when I've done so in the past, has led to repeated and continuous burnout periods. And that's been my experience of life, cycles of that. So, less rigidity for me, more fluidity, more flow. Something that I like to do is called congruent flow, where I align inner and outer, and it's fun. Time disappears. I meet the challenge, it's not overstimulating, it's just enough. You get the point. So, here's something though that I've discovered through my own experimentation. Rituals can make new behaviors feel very safe to the nervous system, right? Because when we look at it, at first, anything new feels uncomfortable, right? Growth is uncomfortable. That's biology, guys. That's not failure. That's not being a defeatist. But rather, repetition creates familiarity, right? And through that familiarity creates safety, okay? See, here's a concept in neuroscience that the brain is plastic, right? And I don't mean that it's made of like plastic Tupperware or some shit like that, but more so that you can create new neural connections. It is constantly growing and evolving. You have to challenge it. Otherwise, it's going to follow the path of least resistance. Okay? That's why growth feels uncomfortable. It takes effort. You're building new connections inside that big brain. It's wonderful, right? So like, you can think of it like this, a simpler way to think of it, okay? The brain is constantly reshaping itself every moment, every second, every thought, every feeling, every expression that you have, say, speak on, do, think, feel, move, posture, remapping, constant, okay? So I also want to touch base on this too. What fires together, wires together, right? So when you repeat a ritual with an intention, you're literally rewiring your nervous system to associate with safety and growth, right? You're training multiple systems at the same time, unknowingly. I like to sum that up as daily alchemy. You know, it's more fun to say it like that, in my opinion. Science can get a little drag sometimes. They like to be very boring. I'm not a boring person, I'm a fun person. So I like to make things fun. So it's alchemy to me. Deal with it. See, even something as simple as choosing where you go to do some work, the library, a coffee shop, a quiet, isolated room. All these things can shift your nervous system state and your mental clarity. Okay, let that sink in. Think about that. Think about where you go. Think about your habits. It's interesting, really. So now you can apply this to many things, right? See, over time, my rituals, they expanded beyond meditation and journaling. They evolved intuitively. And for me specifically, and this ties back to me being a reflector and kind of just more so experimenting with the human design experiment in general anyways. I began tracking the lunar cycle, right? The phases of the moon. And I committed to moving my body daily. Not from a perspective of punishment or anything like that, right? But for joy and expression for me, for love for my body, okay? And on the days that I don't feel like I even have the energy to do anything, the good news is this: there is research now that indicates that you can meditate and think about working out and it produces results. That's fantastic. You should do it. I started prioritizing vegetables, usually one large salad per day, and then usually some with dinner. But I built a wind down routine as well, okay? That include red light therapy and no devices, no screen time, 1 to 2 hours before bed. Because life is not always about producing or work, okay? Put your phone away, put your computer away, put TV away, pick up a book, go touch some grass, go meditate, do whatever, man, do something else. Something else that I've actually seen a lot of results from was reducing my caffeine intake. And I mean quite dramatically. Because I used to be someone that would slam energy drinks on the daily. Or coffee. I mean, like, I enjoy the flavor of both. I think they're refreshing. The smell, the aroma, the experience of drinking it. All around, it's you can see where I'm going with this, right? But in doing so, it had a multifaceted approach, or multifaceted effect on me. Like, now I savor it more so when I do have it. Because I do restrict it. Not because I don't love myself, but because I love myself. Do you see the difference? Yeah, exactly. In my powerlifting years, I was consuming probably 300 to 500 milligrams of caffeine on the daily. In terms of energy drinks, that's like 2 to 4 monsters a day. It's crazy, man. Absolutely. So it eventually led to a realization, at least for me, that something very important anyways. I didn't want exercise to make my life harder, and it seemed that that's exactly what powerlifting was doing for me. I wanted to make my life better, easier. I wanted to increase quality of life, not reduce it. And honestly, that realization kind of changed a lot for me, guys. I want you to take the time to reflect on your life and where simple changes like that can also have a profound impact. There was a time in my life that felt very chaotic. Well, honestly, many times in my life. Honestly, whose life hasn't felt chaotic at times? But these rituals that I mentioned, they're what kept me anchored. They kept me locked in. Not locked in a sense of obligation, but in a sense of self-devotion. That I don't need to escape who I am or my life. Nor should you. Meditation, movement, journaling, and breathwork, they didn't fix everything for me overnight. But they created stability. See, while everything else was shifting, I had those things to rely on, those habits to fall onto, where I knew I could self-soothe, I could regulate emotions, I could surf the wave of these emotions that I was experiencing on the daily, right? Made life clearer for me, made it easier. And honestly, man, like looking back, I feel that I can say with certainty that those small daily practices changed my life. Right? But the thing was, it wasn't a single dramatic or traumatic event that changed me. It was the steady flow that consistently happened over and over and over. Now, let's discuss this kind of with a more modern science approach, right? Modern science actually supports this, and they support what ancient cultures already knew. Surprise! Research shows rituals reduce anxiety and improve emotional regulation. Quite literally what I just described is my lived experience, and I'm sure anyone else who's gone through this or is experimenting with this would relate to. Meditation, see, it changes your brain structure through neuroplasticity, kind of what we discussed earlier. Daily routines can help regulate your circadian rhythm and cognitive stability. When you perform intentional rituals, you're activating neural pathways tied to safety, meaning, and resilience. You have the power to choose how you respond anyways. Why not choose joy, happiness, compassion? But, or I should say, and I feel spirituality adds another layer to this. See, ritual becomes sacred when intention enters the equation, right? Let's examine the law of correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. As the universe, so the soul. See, what that means is that the micro reflects the macro, and vice versa. What's in here matches out there. You know? Think about it. If you're heated and other people are heated, it just produces more anger. But if you meet someone with softness when they're mad, they tend to soften, right? That's co-regulation. You can call it magic, you can call it science, you can call it psychology, you can call it whatever you want to call it. It's a real thing. The phenomenon happens. See, that led me to the thought that your daily rituals become the architecture of your reality, right? That's nothing new under the sun. But it is extremely revolutionary. So, yeah, my rituals have changed constantly over time, and they'll probably consistently continue to change over time. As I evolve as a person, my needs evolve. They'll adapt and change. What I do will adapt and change with it. That's just kind of the rhythm of life, though. You know, see, I'm a naturally extremely curious person. I like to experiment. It's what drove me to science in the first place. You know, and at first, I tried everything. I mean, I took the broad approach, if you will, the shotgun to the barn door, the throw spaghetti to the wall and see what sticks method, because I found everything interesting, not just one thing. Then I kind of tried some rigid systems and habit stacking, but eventually that shit just led to burnout, kind of like what I was reflecting on earlier with you guys. See, and that's when I learned something important, and kind of what drove me to the congruent flow that I spoke about earlier. See, structure works best for me when it serves my natural rhythm, not when it's fighting it, right? Bruce Lee, I feel, very poetically put it. In order to control myself, I must first accept myself by going with and not against my nature, right? And I'm gonna take that a step farther. I don't need to control myself. I need to be devoted to myself. Because this isn't about domination. I don't need to dominate myself. I need to accept myself, and I need to be devoted to where I'm at, accept where I'm at, and grow from where I'm at. You can't change what you're unwilling to see. We've discussed this. So, when I started following my natural rhythm instead of forcing discipline, quite literally everything improved. Surprise. More joy, more sustainability, more growth, right? Because it all supported my nervous system instead of draining it and causing fatigue, cognitive overload. See, now, like what I mentioned earlier, I like to build super simple systems where I can reduce the friction as much as possible. And I adapt them with compassion because I understand there's the need for a lot of ease and grace in this. There's going to be a lot of failed attempts, and that's okay. It's part of the process. If you knew you had to fail 30 times to become a millionaire, or whatever X goal is for you, how fast would you fail those 29 times? Lightning fast. See, and I really think that compassion piece is huge, truly. Because, like I've said, real growth requires an insane amount of self-forgiveness. You have to literally forgive yourself for where you're at, because it's never where we want to be. But remember that it's where you once wanted to be. Take time to be grateful, compassionate towards yourself. Forgive yourself for not rising to the occasion when you think that you haven't, but you have. And if you're on this journey, then you are, and you know. So, with some closing reflections, if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this episode, let it be this. The most powerful alchemical ritual you can start today is with your breath or a meditation, right? A ritual of that sense. Super easy. Start small. Remember, simple systems reduce the friction. Reduce the friction as much as possible. Let me say it again for the people in the back. Put your listening ears on, your thinking caps on. Reduce the friction, I'm telling you. Be congruent and consistent with what you want. Show up for yourself, whatever that looks like for you, right? It's going to be different for everyone. I don't have your answers. I have my answers. And with that, 3 breaths, like I do in the morning, that's easy. Or 2 minutes of stillness, where you allow your perception, your gaze to widen, easy. Downregulate your nervous system. Feel it somatically within your body. It's an experience. Revel in it. That is enough. Right? We don't need to biohack and we don't need to system stack. Not yet. Start small. Remember, I'm not a big fan of a lot of history, but Rome wasn't built in a day, and it does take a long time to build a castle, brick by brick. Whatever metaphor you want to use, man. I mean, it's all the same. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes deliberate awareness. I mean, Joe Dispenza speaks about defining yourself every day. That's powerful. You don't have to define yourself every day. Because I'm still figuring out who I am right now in this moment. It's okay. You can be adaptable. But you probably do have a core or a soul mission that you feel drawn to, magnetically charged to, pulling you. And you can either be dragged or you can willingly embrace. Whatever path you choose is right. Even when you're not in alignment, you're in alignment. It's silly. Life is funny like that. See, because daily alchemy is not about perfection, guys. It's about consistency and congruency with attention and intention. Let me tie it back to something that's kind of popular right now too, the Kaizen method, right? I believe in that. 1% better every day. That compounds in ways that you can't even imagine yet. Seeing at the beginning, you can't see the end. That is okay. It's part of the journey, right? It's not about the end. I think too, these micro daily alchemy rituals can lead to macro transformations. Speaking on my own personal experience, you'll have to experiment for yourself. I can't do the work for you. I'm sorry. Love you guys, but I can't. See, your rituals don't have to be complicated. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. They really don't need to be complicated. They just have to have meaning to you. They must be meaningful to you. They have to be sacred. Okay? Whatever is actually important to you, what drives you, what gives you vitality. We've touched on this stuff. See, because when intention meets repetition, in that sense, transformation quite literally becomes inevitable. And we might not all be Neo from the Matrix, okay? I get that. But we can be our most authentic selves. Genuinely. And over time, those small, daily practices become who you are, right? We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. And it doesn't have to be about excellence. It can be about anything, right? But who do you want to be? Who is in here that wants to be out here? See, I really think that Will Durant's quote said it best when he summed up Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. It's great. But until next time, move with ease, move with grace. And remember, guys, your life is the lab. Have fun, experiment, because you are the alchemist, you are the scientist, you are the architect. You're the creator and the creative. Being created. It's fun. Make it fun. If it's not, if you don't like your life, change it. The power is yours. Always has been. But real quick, before I dip out, a teaser for episode 6. The gut, mind, spirit axis. Okay? Your gut is more than digestion. It's intuition, it's emotion, it's energy. I'm going to break down the microbiome, the vagus nerve, and the spiritual significance, revealing how gut health connects to our inner alchemy, at least in my experiences. But until next time, stay curious, stay embodied, keep your energy flowing, and peace be with you. Check out.